All right, welcome back to what we are officially calling episode 1 of Una Faccia, Una Razza.
Nice.
And I got it right this time. See,
Let's go.
I should have maybe next time going forward I'll have like something Italian prepared to say to make it really feel like authentic
Oh,
coming out. But yeah, it's been a while. Thank you to everyone who is watching this video. It's been a while since you heard from Nick and I. We've both been really busy, whether it's through work or travel. Nick, you've been all over the globe as of late, and I'm really excited to hear more about that. How have you been though, just kind of in general?
yeah, like you said, been busy. Lots of travels since we last talked. I have gone to El Salvador, Amsterdam, and London, and then yeah, as usual, also busy with work. But what about you? How have you been?
I've been good. I've been coughing a lot actually. I went to urgent care last week, and I guess I've been dealing with like post. I don't know what it was that I had. I was sick for a good like 5 days. It wasn't COVID.
Oh,
I thought it was COVID, but it wasn't COVID. But it was just like this cog this nausea, not how do I, what's the word, congestion,
mhm.
and that turned into a cough, a lingering cough, and like a wet cough that wasn't going away. So I finally went to the
Oh,
doctor, and they said it was post nasal drip. So it's mostly better, but if you hear me coughing on this episode, that's why. It's because I'm still kind of, I have some lingering post nasal drip left, but it's almost gone. We're doing
you're
better.
I was gonna say you're a COVID long hauler, but I guess you're a post nasal drip long hauler.
Let's go with that. Honestly, COVID still. I know it's like 2024, right? Like, and who's really talking about COVID right now? But COVID really scares me. I think, in fact, more people should be talking about it because the long COVID part of it is still, it's still out there, and it's still affecting a lot of people, and there's still so much we don't know, and large parts of our society have largely moved on, including the federal government, it feels like, and the research and resources that we're putting into it. But it's serious business. So
Yeah.
I hope people take it seriously and, are staying up to date on their vaccines and all of that. Good stuff. That's it. That's my pitch. It's my TED talk for the day. All right, we're gonna move on. I appreciate. I really like how you just sort of glazed over the fact that you went to like Amsterdam and London and El Salvador. Like, can we get back to that for a second? Tell me like some of the maybe like top three moments, maybe.
Top three moments. Oh,
Not to put you on the spot.
I'll run through it, and then as I go, I'll be like, okay, that's got to be a top three moment. El Salvador, unfortunately, was like a somber occasion. My wife's grandfather passed away, but although it was somber, it was also like touching because we're in my father-in-law's. We were in his like small town where he grew up, Jerusalem, El Salvador. It's a small town. It's not a big city, and like basically the whole town came out to support, and like maybe like 400 people were there the first night for the viewing, like all night basically. So it's like touching to see like how they responded to that, and it was cool to be there to support my wife's grandma and all her uncles. My father-in-law is one of seven brothers, and
Wow.
six of them were there, and got to like get to know and bond with a few of them a little more. So that was good. One of the ones that I was getting to know and bonding with, I asked, we went to go eat, and I asked, like, how many pupusas should I order? And I'm not like a big pupusa guy. I know some people really like them, and that's like El Salvador's, big food. Um, but when I'm in a place, I like to try the food that's, there. I wasn't going to get
Mm-hmm.
like Mexican tacos or something. I wanted to have pupusas, even though I'm
Exactly.
not.
Authentic cuisine.
Yeah, exactly. Do you like pupusas?
I do. I don't. I haven't had them a lot, but every time that I've had them, I've enjoyed them. It's kind of. I haven't really gone looking. I would say done any deep dives for like authentic pupusas here in the Bay Area, but I know they're out there.
Some people really like them. I really like sauces, and they're not typically very wet. And I also am like, usually things that have bread, I like a little bit less in the bread ratio. Like for pizza, I like thin crust. And pupusas are like compared to like a thinner tortilla, it's just more bread, and so I'm not
Hmm.
too crazy about that. Anyways, I asked one of my wife's tios, uncles, how many pupusas is it normal for a single person to eat? And he said six. And I was like, oh, you're pulling my leg. You're trolling me. And like, he insisted he wasn't. I got a few second opinions from the other tios. Um, and they said, like, oh, no, if they're small, then six is fine. So I ordered six, and they weren't small, and like everyone was laughing at me. I'm like the one gringo there, like who ordered seis pupusas. The waitress was like looking at me weird and like laughing at me as I ordered. And I had at that point I was assuming it was like because of my Spanish speaking ability. My wife, I guess, was urging me not to do it, but I didn't listen.
Oh wow.
And I ate like five of them. But one of the common themes through um, my travels is that I've been eating a lot, and starting with Texas, which I talked about on episode 0, like I've gained like probably 25 pounds in just like a very short time. I'm just like not getting full and eating a lot. And so the seis pupusas incident really like kicked that weight gain into overdrive, and they were all laughing at me, and now it's like an inside joke
How many?
with the family. And
Man, she tried to warn you.
yeah, they were pretty good, but I still feel like I was just like adding a lot of sauce, salsa, and that's yeah, like it was good for pupusas, but again, I'm not a crazy pupusa guy.
Hmm.
So I mean, El Salvador was like I said, somber, but it was touching, and it was good to be there to support the family. Then like a week went by, and then we had this week and a half, 2 week travels to Amsterdam and London. Amsterdam was incredible. We went to the Van Gogh Museum and the Anne Frank House, which were both really awesome. I'm not
Wow.
like by any means, I'm not an art scholar. And you might remember from our elementary school days learning about Van Gogh and like Starry Night. And that
I
is
do
like
vaguely, yeah.
one of the I don't really know what like makes good art. And sometimes I'm like confused about like why is so and so famous or important. But
Hmm.
like Starry Night is one where it's like for me it's like undeniable. You look at it and it's just awesome, and like yeah. So, but Starry Night wasn't there. But nevertheless, Van Gogh is.
Aw,
We actually no,
what?
we saw Starry Night in New York in January though, so it's
Okay.
okay at the MoMA, I think.
Oh,
Um,
that's sick.
yeah, but got to learn a lot about Van Gogh, like history wise, and like learned about his brother, who was Van Gogh. Vincent had some like mental health struggles. I think a lot of people know about like him cutting off his own ear towards the end of his life, and then eventually um, committing suicide. And but then like they had a lot of like letters from one brother to the other brother, and they really like supported each other, and that was one of the cool things to see. And Frank House was obviously really emotional, but really well done. One of my issues with museums is like the crowds and like people going in front of you and you not being able to see
Oh,
things and kind of
yeah.
having to like fight for position and like. But in the Anne Frank house, it's so small that it was basically like single file through the house, and then it's also they have to like limit how many people they let in at a time. And it was really like well preserved, if you will,
Okay.
and had a lot of like nice context and informational history and stuff as you went through it. You remember, I'm sure, reading her diary
I
back
do,
in
yes. I believe
seventh grade.
that was seventh grade. Yeah, I think it was so. And I remember too, we read the book and there were some like supplemental elements, like videos that we watched. I remember her father, I believe his name was Oscar, but I could be
Something
incorrect.
like that.
He did a really good job of sort of maintaining the house and just sort of making sure that her legacy and the legacy of their family was preserved. And so I'm really happy to hear that. And because he passed away a few decades ago. So I'm just glad to hear that that tradition is still carrying on and that people are still taking good care to make sure that this is all preserved. Because yeah, that's a really really important story to be telling nowadays. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that that was a good experience.
I assume kids at that age still it's still in the curriculum. Kids reading her diary, I would
God, I
assume,
hope so. Yeah.
because it's like uh, most kids are probably not super well equipped to deal with or like understand necessarily everything that's going on, but when it's in the form of a diary of a kid the same age as you, it like makes it easier to relate
Right.
to and understand and be like, yeah, empathize, I guess. um but yeah, Amsterdam as a city is really cool. It's like characterized by really thin houses, and they're all like next to each other, and then they're vertically a little bit taller to make up for their
Hmm.
horizontal limitations.
Like how thin are we? When you say a thin house, like what do we?
Maybe like 20 feet wide. I don't know. I'm
Okay,
not
but
good at
no, but
estimating.
noticeably different. Where you're like, oh wow, like that's different, and they were just all like that.
Yeah, very like noticeable, like iconic or like yeah, recognizable. And then they're
Hmm.
all uh stacked next to each other, so you're like sharing a wall with, and they're all really old for the most part, really old buildings.
Oh
Um
jeez.
so definitely like a historic city. And then hopefully I don't anger any of our Italian fans, but I kind of felt like Amsterdam was like a better version of Venice, because it's
Hmm.
like it gives you the canal vibe.
Oh, sorry. What the fuck?
Is that your ringtone?
No, it was my TV, which is off. I thought. Sorry about that.
It's all right. But a better version of Venice, because you get the canal city vibe, but you don't have to deal with the crowds. And so then also the food was really good. I tried something called Bitterballen, which is kind of like a meatball, but it's more so like a beef stew that's allowed to cool and then like deep fried or whatever. So it is in a ball shape and it's fried, but inside it's like a wet. It's not like a ground beef consistency. It's like a wet stew. It's not like a soup dumpling though. It's like thicker than that. Anyways, Bitterballen, you got to try it. Served
Feature
with like a
ball.
good mustard and the curry ketchup. And I think curry ketchup is actually for me one of the most underrated condiments.
Ooh.
um you can find it some places around here, but it's it's really good with fries. And so another thing I had was fries, specifically with some fresh Italian Parmesan, which was really good, and a truffle aioli, which was incredible. My wife didn't order well. I did a lot of research before I went into this fry place, and she was kind of giving me shit like, "Well, I just want to experience it. Like when we get there, like don't ruin it
Just
for
going
me."
fresh with an open
And
mind.
but my research paid off, because she ordered like fries with like cheddar cheese and ketchup, and they were very underwhelming. And
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
Parmesan and truffle aioli, which was what everyone said you had to get, um, she was stealing all mine,
Yeah.
and
That
she
sounds
really liked it.
delicious.
Yeah, it was great. Had a few truffle aiolis in Amsterdam that were
Oh, love
like really
truffle.
good.
Oh, that sounds so good.
And that might be my gateway drug to eventually liking mushrooms, because I'm not a big mushroom guy.
But
But
if you're a truffle guy, then technically you're a mushroom guy.
oh, I
So
I don't know the logistics on that. Like truffles are also a fungus, but they're not mushrooms, are they?
they're not. I believe technically they're not mushrooms, but the flavor profile I think you'll find from like truffle to mushroom. A truffle is like a mushroom for me at least. Like you have like your mushroom flavor. A truffle is like mushroom flavor, just like times 10. But it's just
Mm,
like so potent and strong that a little of it really goes a long way. But I think if you like truffle, I think for a lot of people, what turns them off from mushrooms is the consistency, and not so much the flavor. So if you try
mm,
it in a way that that maybe like have that kind of like rubbery, chewy consistency, if you're not really
mm-hmm.
experiencing that, I think you might like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and like a mushroom soup, I'm not gonna mind too much. It's not the flavor. It's like you said, it's the like slimy texture that I usually don't like. But I within the last 2 years or so, I broadened my horizons, and now I'm a sushi guy. So
Hey,
like
let's go.
so mushrooms aren't out of the question, and I've been trying to force myself to experience some more, and it hasn't like really caught on, but it could happen someday.
There's still time.
My
Uh,
parents like give me a lot of shit for it.
Shameless plug. Rosine's makes an amazing cream of mushroom soup. It
Cream
used to
of
be
mushroom.
cream of mushroom. Yeah, it used to be every Tuesday. Not sure if it's. I believe it still is, but yeah, it's farmers market days. They do cream of mushrooms. So if you're
Oh,
ever downtown,
I might have to try that.
all right. But so Amsterdam sounds like this was a 2 week trip. You were on Amsterdam and then London, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I talked a little bit about the food in Amsterdam. I don't think I missed anything there. The pancakes are really good. They're kind of like crepes,
Ooh,
like thin and big. And they were really good, though. I had one with chicken and pineapple, and the waiter was like kind of giving me shit. Like, it's not a pizza, right? And I think because it's obvious I was
what?
American. Well, I
What?
think he was probably says this to all Americans. He's probably
Was it
like,
on the menu though?
yeah, not only was it on the menu, this was another place I did research for, and people said it was great. But then on the menu itself, it had a little icon, star maybe, or something that said like popular. So I was like, okay, it's not. I would have felt like weird ordering a pineapple thing, but then like everyone online says it's great. The menu is vouching for it, so like, all right, I'm doing it. I love pineapple, and it was great. But I think he probably just trolls all Americans that order like a
Probably,
pineapple
yeah.
pancake. The savory ones were like apparently the go to. Judith also had these little mini pancakes called they're Dutch. They're called poffertjes, I think, and those
Hmm.
are like pretty good. And yeah, the the waiter giving me shit for ordering the pineapple pancake was an instance of this meme I've invented when I travel
Mm-hmm.
overseas. Stupid American. It started on my honeymoon in Italy when I was driving, and like everyone's passing me, and every time they pass me I would just kind of make fun of myself and be like, stupid American. Not a very good Italian accent, but maybe my hand gesture is
The
good.
hand, no, yeah, the hand's good. Yeah, this gets a lot of do a lot of this, a lot of
Yeah,
that
a
too.
lot of action. Oh,
Yeah,
that's a bad one. I didn't get any
that
of those,
that
fortunately.
is a bad one. Yeah, but they like their hands.
By the way, one of our like two Instagram followers for our podcast account is some guy who I think just found it because of the name, and he commented on like our one post,
Oh
and he was
no.
like, "I'm curious about the name." So like, I feel like we have our foot in the door in the Italian.
Maybe
Um,
an international audience is our real calling. Maybe that's
yeah,
how we're
but
gonna blow up.
I don't know. Are we gonna lose them? Like all of our Italian viewers watching us do this and me saying that Amsterdam was a better version of Venice. We might,
If they've made it this far, then they're probably just on board with whatever it is we're
yeah.
doing.
Una faccia, una razza.
Una faccia, una razza.
But yeah, return of the stupid American meme. Some shenanigans we got up to in Amsterdam. We did a canal cruise, which was awesome. Got to see the city, learn some history. I got the tour guide talking about, like, I asked some question about like movies filmed in Amsterdam, and he had like a whole bunch of anecdotes about when they filmed The Hitman's Bodyguard, which is a
Oh
2017 action comedy with Samuel L. and Ryan Reynolds.
yeah, great movie.
And this guy had like a lot of stories because he was like doing canal cruises, and they were filming like scenes where cars were like going into the canal. So he was passing his phone around and showing videos of like all this like basically backstage access he had.
Oh, that's so cool.
And it was awesome for me, but I felt bad for the like six or so other people on the tour who just had their canal cruise turn into like a movie, a specific like the guy was making fun of himself. He's like saying like, I'm just going to talk about this for the rest of the time now. Sorry guys. But he was not kidding, and yeah, he really went in detail about his exposure to the filming of The Hitman's Bodyguard. But yeah, then we did a Heineken experience at the original Heineken brewery,
Sick,
and it
sick.
was like a good blend of like informational, learning how breweries work, learning about history of Heineken, but then also like fun stupid activities and stuff like that. After that, we did an electronic music like museum or like experience, which I had extremely high expectations for because there's a
Yeah.
lot of like DJs and producers from Amsterdam. Um, but so that's why they have this experience there, and I had huge expectations, and it was definitely underwhelming. They had like showing you how to DJ, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get to show Judith like how DJing works, and it was like didn't the device didn't work well, and then like there was this other like beat making area, and then that was kind of didn't work well. There's like buttons that didn't work. Um, but at the very end, they did like this like 20-minute montage where you're like standing on a dance floor and it's like vibrating and like going up and down, and fog machines and stuff are shooting at you. And it was cool to see like them go from like the 80s to the present with different like well-known DJs and stuff.
Hmm.
But for me, obviously the most exciting parts were like Dead Mouse and Skrillex, and they had this like Scary Monsters, Nice Sprites drop where like the dance floor like also dropped, and it was like underwhelming experience overall, but that was probably a highlight.
Yeah, that sounds kind of cool.
We did I had a special chocolate bar, which was my first time having a THC product in 5 months. So
Oh wow.
that was cool. And then we went to see Furiosa, Mad Max Furiosa, at like a fancy, like old school theater, which was awesome. And
So it was the
theater,
chocolate like the pregame for the movie? Was this was all like the
yeah. And
same
maybe this is
setting?
a little too much information, but like I was very full on Thai food, which was really good. But like I was kind of worried about like eating a chocolate bar and then like shitting my pants during the movie. I don't know. I get like paranoid sometimes, and then like I could just see myself like I'm gonna like be paranoid that I'm gonna shit my pants. So, but I avoided that situation.
I'm so glad to hear that. Truly.
Yeah, we got to the movie theater with plenty of time before the movie. Judith got us some popcorn and some beer. And movie itself, maybe we'll talk about later in the pod. And then yeah, the chocolate bar, we had some leftovers, so then we finished it our last morning and went to the pancake place I was talking about.
Hmm.
And so that breakfast was really good.
Oh
But
hell
then we
yeah.
get back to the room and we have to like pack and go to the airport, and I just think that that's like not a good combo. um like I was just like what are we forgetting, like how am I gonna make it all fit, and Judith was just like off reading or something, and I was the one like freaking out. And then doing airport stuff itself, like I was worried we were gonna like do something wrong. But yeah, last thing I'll say about Amsterdam is we went through the famous red light district, and it was a huge letdown for my wife because she was expecting like some craziness, some like titties in the window or something maybe.
Uh-huh.
And we went during the daytime though, so I think
Oh
it's
well,
understandable.
yeah. First mistake was going during the day. That was I was not expecting. That's not what I was expecting to hear. Is that your wife was the disappointed one due to the lack of titties? That is not what I thought I was going to hear. But okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of like sex toy shops and stuff, but like it was pretty tame during the day at least. But I'm sure if we had gone through at night, it would have been pretty raunchy. Yeah, so enough about Amsterdam. Then we went to London, met up with my cousin Yanis, who you know because you were both groomsmen in my
Yeah.
wedding, and his wife and son were there. And his
Nice.
son's super into Harry Potter right now, so we did a lot of like Harry Potter activities.
I was
We,
waiting for the Gryffindor shirt you're
yeah,
wearing to come up.
yep,
Okay.
titties in the
There
window.
we go.
Um, so we went to the play, and it's like a two-part play, which we went to a version in New York in January that was like condensed into one part, and it was kind of a letdown. But the two-part one in London was like really good. It just had better pacing because they weren't like rushing it, but it was an all day, pretty much an all day affair. Then we went to a Spirited Away play,
Oh, nice.
which was incredible. We were sitting second row. It's like obviously Japanese and like super artistic the way the set was, and then like the characters and um, effects and stuff, music, everything was like awesome. And I just recently saw that movie for the first time right
Oh,
before our
great
trip.
movie.
Yeah,
Great movie. Yeah. Oh, that's so
yeah.
cool. Play. Wow.
I got to do a Miyazaki deep dive now. I want to like see all the movies and see what they're all about. So I
A lot
guess
to
I got my.
unpack there. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
Probably Spirited Away. I do
Okay.
really like Howl's. I haven't seen all of them. I really like Howl's Moving Castle too.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. And I've only seen the English dubs of these. So I don't know how different watching in the original language with subtitles, like how different than an experience that is. But those are my top two, and then my neighbor Totoro would be and just because Totoro, I feel like that character is like iconic. I feel like he gives me like Snorlax vibes in the best way. And Snorlax was my favorite Pokemon,
Yeah.
so yeah, great. But I think yeah, they're
I think
great
that's a
movies.
common top three. And then the play had subtitles too, which was really interesting. Like they were on the left and right side of the stage, and you could kind of, based on what was happening on the stage, you could pick, what was more convenient to look at. But they were also like very artistically done and like in this little like vines forest type thing. But yeah, it's weird to think of watching a play with subtitles, but it was, yeah, it
Interesting.
was well done. I almost ruined. It was a surprise for my nephew Alex, Yanni's son, and I like the first day we got there, I was like, "Are you excited for Spirited Away?" And they had already told me months ago when we saw them that it was a surprise, and I had just forgotten. And then
No, dude.
like Yanni's like said like "uh-oh," and like then I like realized my mistake. And Alex was all like confused on his face. He had no idea what I was talking about. And so then I like tried to play it off as like, we're gonna watch the movie together. Like I've never seen it. And I like he's a 10-year-old. Like I don't know if I played it off well. I feel like I might have ruined the surprise, but he claimed to be surprised and he was super stoked. And he's all about Miyazaki too, Harry Potter and Miyazaki. So this trip was like heaven for him, I'm sure.
Oh wow, a boy of culture.
Yep. Yeah. I'm he's he's been into Marvel in the past, but he hasn't seen like all the movies because
Mm-hmm.
he's too young, I think. But I anticipate in the next few years he's just gonna be like all out into Marvel stuff, MCU. But we'll see. The next day we did Harry Potter studio tour, which was very interesting. It's all about like the studio about an hour outside of London where they filmed the movies. And obviously super nostalgic for millennials like us, and it was an all day thing. And on top of that, my wife was really like taking her time, like because she's also a huge Harry Potter person, and like especially the movies and like all these little anecdotes we were getting. We learned at some point in the tour that you could ask one of the employees for a secret, and they would like tell you. They all were equipped with these secrets, which were just like random tidbits of information depending on like where you were in the studio.
Hmm.
So you'd learn like cool stuff like what Diagon Alley and like Hogsmeade like are kind of like were filmed in the same part of the studio but like in reverse directions, and then they would change some of the storefronts, and it was a lot like smaller than I would have expected. And most of them were not actual stores you could go in except for the wand one. Forget
Hmm.
the guy's name.
Ollivander.
There we go.
Ollivander.
Ollivander's
Yeah.
shop. Like you could they actually had to film a scene there, so you actually had to have like a little store in there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was awesome. Other than that, saw the Rosetta Stone in the British Museum, and
Oh, the Rosetta Stone.
yeah, and the
Nice.
Greek statues that were stolen from the British or by the British
The
from the
British.
Acropolis
Oh, that's
in
cool.
Athens. So that was cool, but also, like we're gonna fight because
Yeah, that too.
yeah, oh no, I'm not gonna. I'm just a stupid American, but
Use your words.
food, huh?
Just gonna say, fight with your words.
Yeah, just stare angrily. Food in London was nothing too crazy. Had some really good Neapolitan pizza. I think, like I was saying before, Neapolitan pizza and New York pizza are probably my favorite kinds of pizza because they're more thinner crust and
Mm-hmm.
big floppy slices. They're not necessarily floppy, but like almost like their weight can't support themselves because they're such big slices. Um, Went to an Italian American diner, which had a really cool vibe, but it was interesting because it was like British doing an impression of Americans doing an impression of Italian food. So interesting concept. And they had like Sopranos references, and like artwork was a little
Oh boy.
raunchy, and like
Oh boy.
felt like a diner, but definitely like an Italian American diner. And my wife ordered me a drink that came in like a titty mug, saying the word titty a lot on this pod.
Yeah,
But
you have
yeah,
to.
titty mug, which was awkward because I was sitting right next to my 10-year-old nephew, but he was a good sport about it. And then we had English breakfast and tea, of course, which is like, I didn't really know what it's all about. They have sandwiches with the crust cut off, and I had some scones and some like kind of sweets and stuff. And then scone was really good that we had, and
Any crumpets?
I don't think so. I don't know what crumpets are. I know that's a thing they're known for, but I also wanted bangers and mash, and I was referencing it like the entire trip, and I never got my bangers and mash.
Oh my gosh, that's awful.
Yeah,
I think crumpets
yeah.
are just like British biscuits.
Oh,
I may have
that
had
might have
them
been the
once.
scone that we had, but it was sweet. Are crumpets sweet or
Maybe. I just know like tea
savory?
and crumpets is a thing there. They might be sweet.
Hmm.
I am honestly not sure.
I think maybe the thing I call the scone was a crumpet, but I'll have to double check on that.
No
And
disrespect to our two British viewers who are watching this as well.
I mean, 2 out of 5 is a lot, and then the other 3 are Italian. So,
You're right.
um, the last thing on the food in England was introduced Judith to Indian food, which she didn't grow up eating a lot of, and like I got her into curry, like Thai curry, early on in our relationship, and but she was always kind of like wary of Indian food and Indian curry and sauces and stuff. So the fact that they have really good Indian food in London, so I took the opportunity to try and expose her to that more, and she really liked it. She really liked raita and naan and stuff. She didn't like palak paneer or sag paneer, unfortunately. But and then she liked butter chicken. I went with some pretty like basic stuff that we could get over here. A, because that's what I know and like, but B, because like I wanted the positive outcome of this situation to be like, okay, now we can get Indian food for takeout when we go back home. And I think
Exactly.
we accomplished that.
Nice.
And yeah, last thing I'll say is I learned some new words in another language, British. Um,
Oh yeah,
I
so
learned,
different from English. Yeah.
yeah, I learned the word British itself, and similar word Quidditch. I learned that one. I learned Professor Flitwick, and my personal favorite, Expecto Patronum. And those were the words in British I learned. And yeah, that was, sorry for a little
Do
bit
they do
long.
do they say expecto patronum in a non Harry Potter setting? That's just something they throw out in conversation.
I do, and my wife and my cousin and his family, I think, were pretty sick of me saying the things I just said. My cousin also got really sick of me saying Mr. Tumnus, because who is a character from the Chronicles of
Yes,
Narnia.
I remember.
And the reason I say Mr. Tumnus is because I refer to my stomach as Mr. Tumnus. And when I eat too much, I'm saying like, "Oh, Mr. Tumnus don't feel no good no mo." I actually said this in front of our friend Greg one time, and I think it might have caught on with him. But my cousin Yanis was
Oh
really getting
no.
annoyed by the references to Mr. Tumnus by the end of the trip. But sucks
Yeah,
for
I
him.
think you just found a way to make like a caricature of all these like British characters from like British franchises that were also popular in America. So yes, well done.
Yeah, I encourage you to refer to your stomach as Mr. Tumnus as well if you have an occasion for it. But you asked me to give top 3, and I feel like it's going to be hard to narrow
Yeah.
it down to 3, but I would say um, Spirited Away. I would say um, it's hard to pick a single thing from Amsterdam. Maybe like the Van Gogh Museum
Okay.
and the like night where we had incredible Thai food, ate a chocolate bar, and then went to Furiosa at this really fancy theater. That was a pretty fun experience. But honorable mention was the Dutch pancakes. Those
with the
were,
chicken and pineapple.
yeah, stupid American.
No, man, that's a solid top three. And then, man, what a great time! Sounds like it was a great trip.
Yeah, sorry I
Glad you
went a
guys had
little
fun.
long on the overview.
I mean, it's just it's just two guys talking. We're just having conversation. I feel like we should be having like a. It's a little early in the day, but I feel like we should be having like a beer or something. This could just be two guys just
Oh,
like just drinking over, just
that sounds good.
just hanging out. No, yeah,
Oh,
that's cool. Wanted to hear about your travels, so yeah,
yeah.
I think that's. I mean, a little long, but these are long form podcasts, so I
It
think
won't
it's.
go as long as the last one, hopefully. But yeah, let me hear a little bit about what you've been up to lately since we last talked.
I don't have any travel experiences because I believe I told you about Reno
I
for
mean, you
Mother's
haven't
Day
gone to three
weekend.
different countries since
No,
a
I
month
haven't.
ago.
Unfortunately, no, I haven't gone to
Oh,
three different countries or three different states. Even I think I've probably been to three different cities. At least I can say that. But no, it's been busy. It was a really busy week at work. We had a lot going on this week. I worked in TV news for anyone who doesn't know here in the Bay Area, and just a really busy week. It started with the passing of Willie Mays on Tuesday, and he was a Giants player, a Giants legend, one of the greatest, arguably the greatest baseball player of all time. He was 93 years old. And I didn't know, I knew of him, but I really didn't know much of the stories about him until he passed. And then that sort of just unleashed all these memories and stories and just, people sharing moments they had with him, whether it was getting to meet him or watching him on the field. And, you're hearing from Barry Bonds all of a sudden, and you're hearing from, we're talking to the Giants CEO on air. We're talking to friends of Rickwood Field, which is the baseball park where they played that game on Thursday, the historic game to honor the Negro Leagues. And when we're talking to old sports anchors, we're bringing back people who have retired and haven't been on the air in years, but they're coming back on the set to talk
wow.
about Willie Mays because he was just that big a deal.
Hmm.
And that was just on Tuesday, and then
I'm
on.
pretty ignorant. Sorry to interrupt, but like when the news dropped, I like my initial thought was like I didn't realize Willie Mays was still alive. Like I knew the name from like I knew my dad is kind of like into old baseball history, so I
Mhm.
definitely knew the name and knew he was like a big figure, but I had no idea he was still alive. And yeah,
Yeah, 93 years old. We had been, so, because the game on Thursday was originally going to honor him in some way. That was part of the plan that Major League Baseball had for this game
wow,
at Rickwood Field because it was the Giants and the Cardinals, so they knew they were going to do something for Willie Mays. He played in the Negro Leagues. He got to start there with the Birmingham Black Barons. He was still in high school. He was 17 years old
wow,
when he started playing, so he actually had to like miss some games to graduate college. He missed his senior prom because of a game. So there were just fun little anecdotes like that. But
hmm,
once he passed, everything just really just took a turn. The game became really more of a tribute to him, and I thought Fox Sports did a really great job of paying homage to his legacy and like the pregame and whatnot. We were tasked with me and another producer were tasked with putting together a Willie Mays special. So it was us and the editor. We sort of looked back through the archives and looked at old interviews we had done with Willie, old clips from, Giants championship parades, from his statue unveiling in 2000,
wow,
his time with, then President Obama on board Air Force One when they flew to the All Star game together in two
uh,
thousand nine. That was really cool. So just getting a chance to kind of go back and see all that he had done.
was it like an hour long special that?
It ended up being 75 minutes. So
Okay.
the original plan was, so the game was going to, first pitch was going to be at 4:15, and then so we
Hmm.
figured it would end around 7. We'd go on at 7:01, and then go on until 8. Well, first pitch went from 4:15 to 4:30. So like, okay, so like we know it's going to start late. The game ended up going ending around 7:30. We didn't go on until 7:45 because then they did their post game coverage. So the plan was originally if it ends around 7:30, we can go until 8:30. Well, it started at 7:45, so we thought, okay, we could do a 45-minute show. But instead, we were essentially able to blow out what was already scheduled to be on air and go until 9 p.m. So at
Oh,
first we
nice.
were like, well, how do we fill this content? How do we fill the show with all this content? We need to come up with like an extra 15 minutes. We'd only prepared for an hour long show, but it really worked out. We had a reporter live in Birmingham, Alabama, who was there. We flew him out there to cover sort of the
Nice.
game and talk to people there, just kind of get the feel of the fans who were there, whether they're from San Francisco or people who are from the area and can really speak to like the civil rights movement, because this was like ground zero for the civil rights movement in Birmingham, Alabama. It's
Yeah.
not far from the Selma Bridge where they walked and where Bloody Sunday was. There's a church near the ballpark where four young black girls were murdered by members of the KKK,
Mm.
and those four people were not charged or indicted. Nothing ever came of them. So just kind of seeing examples of that racism that was still on display, even not really even going that far back, going back to like the 60s and the 70s, people were still experiencing racism in the 50s. And so just getting a chance to sort of tell those stories and remind people of the ugliness of it all, but also why something like the Negro Leagues was worth celebrating. So that's kind of what the special was about. And I thought it all worked out by stretching the show out to an hour 15. We were really able to sort of let it breathe and got a chance to tell more stories. A lot of it was just conversation back and forth with the reporter and for this retired sports anchor who we brought in, and he did a great job. Everyone did a
Awesome.
great job. It was, and the directors were good too. And it was a team effort. And it was a lot of fun. I learned a ton about Willie Mays. I absorbed a ton
I bet.
of baseball because his nickname was the Say Hey Kid. And I didn't really know why that was, but it turns out it was just he was essentially a kid at heart, as
Mm-hmm.
people would explain it. And he would always be like on the baseball field. He wouldn't call you by your name. He would just say hey, and like that would get your attention. That was it. So he became the Say Hey Kid. And children, when he was with the Giants when they were still in New York, they would come up to him and like ask to like play. They wanted to play stickball with him, before or after the game, and the games were mostly day games at that time. So he was like, yeah, he would play with the kids. He would hang out with kids, and he just had like a larger than life personality. And he would just
Awesome.
sort of his stats are incredible. He has one of the highest home run totals of any player. He won the World Series in 1954, 24-time All Star, first
Wow.
ballot Hall of Famer. Yeah, he played for a long time. So I think he was an All Star for maybe all but a few years that he was in the league. And there's some highlights of him, at like 39 years old, and he's still out there like diving and making acrobatic
Yeah, he was an
catches.
outfielder, right? It's
He
not
was
like
an
a pitcher. It's
outfielder.
not like
Yeah,
Randy Johnson playing till he was 80 years old or something. Like,
exactly. Yeah, he was a center fielder. His most famous play is the catch that he made in the World Series in New York, where he essentially like it's like I think it was top of the eighth inning. The teams are tied 2-2, and this guy makes this. I forget the player who made the hit, but Willie Mays just like runs all the way back and he catches it just in time. ESPN did like a sports science piece on it. He had like the tiniest window, like frames, like fractions
wow.
of a second to reach up and catch this ball, and then he did. And then without losing any of his momentum, he turns around and just throws the ball all the way back, and the guy was, he was out, and then there was someone on first base, but the person on first base wasn't able to make it past second base.
Wow.
That's just an incredible display of athleticism by him. So it was stories like that, like what he did both on and
It
off
would
the
have been a
field.
home run that he prevented.
Yeah, easily would have been a home
Wow.
run because the guy that was on base would have scored, and then the person who made the hit would have probably gotten to at least second. So yeah, and then they ended up winning that series. So that play is remembered as sort of the play that won the series for the
Mm.
Giants. So he's and his jersey's been retired by both the Giants and the Mets, who he played for after the Giants. He retired
Mm.
with the Mets. So for a lot of people in the Bay Area, they grew up watching Willie. The Giants moved from New York to San Francisco while he was on the team, and they just sort of grew up with Willie Mays, and he was, he either got them into baseball or, or just made them a Giants fan. So getting a chance to really tell those stories and just kind of relive that was really cool. That was a cool experience. And that was just one of the things that happened this week.
Sounds like a really cool career opportunity for you, like a good,
It was,
obviously a
yeah.
somber
I was
occasion, but
It
like
was it was somber, I think, at first, but the fact that he was 93 years old, it made it see it wasn't like, oh, taken too soon. It wasn't like, what a devastating loss. It was just
yeah,
like, oh, it really, the fact that he lived such a long and such a lovely life gave people sort of the opportunity to really just like reflect in a way. And it was kind of
celebrate
wholesome,
his life.
honestly. It was wholesome, and yeah, and thankfully we have people working at the station who are Giants fans and who know him and know the stories really well. We have an editor who it was a huge Willie Mays fan, so he like dug back into the archives and he found all these tapes himself. He found
Wow.
raw interview of like an hour-long interview we did with him back in 2000. Some of the clips that never even made air, so we got a chance to really pull some cool things out, and I think people were really receptive. We got a lot of good feedback on the special.
Sweet. Good
Got good
work.
ratings too, which is always important. Thank you.
Nice.
I know I was a little nervous. I had so talked to you about it before, just that I was kind of nervous for doing this, but because I'd never really
Yeah.
done anything like it before, but at least produced a show like this. But I think it worked out great. I also hope that there were two of us producing,
Mm.
because usually for a special show like this, you'll get some prep time and you'll get to sort of work on it in advance. That did not happen this time because it just all happened so fast.
Yeah.
He passed away on Tuesday and the game was on Thursday. And we had just gotten a statement from him on Monday that he would not be attending the game, that he would be watching at home here in the Bay Area. And then the next day he passed away. And it was so odd. The timing of it was odd, but it also, in a morbid way, it kind of worked out because the game on Thursday gave everybody a chance to really appreciate him and
Celebrate his
reflect on
life.
him and celebrate his life and legacy. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that worked out. That worked out really well. I think when all is said and done, that was definitely the work highlight of the week in a positive way.
Is it gonna re-air at all?
I don't think so.
Mm.
It might end up on the app, so like
Oh,
on the websites on the Fox local app, which is like where a lot of the streaming content lives. I'm not certain though. If
when
I
that kind of
do find it, I can certainly share it.
do you get when you do work like that? Do you ever like ask for your own recording export or whatever?
I could go in and grab it myself if I wanted to, which actually I should. That's a good idea. I should do that because I have access to the clean feeds, so I can
Mm.
go in and chop it up myself if I want to. I haven't. I'm really bad at doing that though. A lot of producers will like are constantly saving shows to like add to their reel or update their reel. I'm really bad at doing that. But I should. I should be
Is there
doing that.
anything you've like worked on in the past where you look back on it now and like, I wish I had a copy of that one thing I worked on or anything like that that you regret not having?
There was maybe. It's a good question. I thought some of the coverage that we did uh, when I was still working at Channel 4 in San Francisco, when Trump was indicted
Mm.
4 times in a summer. I thought some of our coverage that we did was really good. I don't know if I would go back and save all of it, but maybe just like some highlights, some like breaking news highlights. The first arraignment, we were not prepared. We weren't even planning on going live and doing anything with it. But the general manager was like, "Hey, yeah, I think we should be doing this," and every other station was on it. So we got on it
Oh,
with no preparation, and we ended up being on for 3 hours, and it was just me and the anchor, and then we pulled in our political analysts, and we just bullshit for 3 hours.
wow.
Very little happened that day. A lot of it was just like kind of staring at this live camera in the courtroom, waiting for Trump to walk in and then to walk out, and then eventually the DA spoke. But that was a long day. But I was proud of how that turned out. Some of that
Nice.
coverage turned out really well then for the later um, arraignments, and then in the case of Georgia when he was arrested. I saved the clips from KSBW that I wanted to save. I saved. That was the first station I worked at in Salinas. Um,
Let's go Monterey County.
I know, yeah. Actually, you might enjoy this. One of the clips that I have saved on a Google Drive is the day that Dan Green did the weather.
Oh,
Because there was no. I should pull it up and like show him some of that. See if he even remembers that. I was doing the
he might
weekend
be one
morning
of our
show.
listeners, actually.
Oh, really? Well, shout out Dan if you're listening. I miss you. I hope you're well. You were amazing to work with. You taught me so much, and I really appreciated all the time we had together. But
He did the
I
weather.
trusted him. The weather, yeah. So we were doing the weekend morning show, and this was that awkward in between where the weekend morning anchor had left, and then her fill-in replacement also left. So we had no one to fill in on the weekend morning. So it ended up being Dan and Aaron filling in, and they would alternate every other. It was every other weekend they would switch. So this was a weekend where Dan was filling in, and our meteorologist was a no-show.
Oh,
I think it ended up being like a miscommunication in scheduling. The main anchor at the time, the main meteorologist at the time was on vacation. So I like didn't feel like I could call her. Like I couldn't. I was like, well, she's on vacation. Like I'm not gonna reach out to her. Everyone else I tried to reach out to was not available. So I finally got a hold of my news director at like 6 a.m. The show started at 7. That was around the time Dan came in too. And so they got on the phone, and I'm like, okay, like I'm just gonna, I took care of everything as much as I could, but Dan just did the weather. We put up a couple graphics that we had in the system, and he just like, I don't know what he did. He must have just gone to like weather.com or something, or the National Weather Service, and just pulled up the report and just talked over some graphics, and it was fine. And we had like a pet of the weekend segment. That we had a partnership with the SPCA. They would bring an animal every weekend morning, and this time she brought in like a macaw, just like this huge, gorgeous bird. And so
oh,
we just did that. Ended up being like a 6 minute segment. So we just ate up all the time. We just ate up so much
wow.
time, and it honestly, I was like, I don't know who else could do that at the time.
I
Even
feel like,
now, after all the anchors I've worked with, I feel like Dan's one of the few who could actually pull that off.
well, as a person, I feel like there's an idiom I'm searching for that I can't think of, but he's like a man of many talents, or a guy who wears a lot of hats, or like a chameleon where he could just kind of put him in any situation and he's gonna like fit in. And like he's all about cooking, like barbecuing, food service in general, like knowing how restaurants work, which is kind of surprising to me. Also runs a side business like media in the media industry, so maybe a little bit similar to his main gig, but still like totally different. And then he's like a community, like not a staple, but like he knows everyone, just like knows like their backstory or what they're all about. So he's like the what was those commercials, the most interesting man in the world.
Oh, he is one of the most interesting men in the world. He really is. He's a gem. Yeah,
Those like
I
tequila
remember.
commercials or something. What was it?
Oh, Dos Equis.
Oh,
Yeah, the guy who went "Stay thirsty, my friends."
yeah,
That
that
guy,
could be
yeah,
Dan.
that could be Dan easily. He should get him. We should get him a beer commercial. Yeah, and I just remember like doing the U.S. Open too when it was in Pebble Beach in 2019. Him and Aaron were out, and like she was out in the field, he was in the studio, and they were just going back and forth. And I'm like, how do you know so much about golf? Like, how do you
Oh,
like?
he's
Where
super
did this
into
all come
golf
from?
right now. That he's on a
Super into
golf
it.
kick.
Yeah, I mean, for that area, for that market, you should be into it because it's huge there. But still, just like, oh my god, they just like what don't they know?
Expecto Patronum. Just gonna keep saying that while he's gone. Expecto Patronum. Expecto Patronum.
You mentioned restaurants
Yeah.
and Dan Green's knowledge of the restaurant industry, and it sounds like you have a lot of experience in restaurants yourselves and enjoying everything. So I want to ask you, I want to get your thoughts on something, and
Okay.
I'll start by saying this: how familiar are you with the hidden fee debate that's happening right now in
Zero.
California?
Zero
Zero. Okay.
awareness. Totally ignorant.
Fair. Okay. Now let me ask you this: did you ever go to a restaurant where you order your meal and then you get the bill at the end, and you notice like a extra charge on the bill, maybe like
Yeah,
a
like
service fee or like a health mandate or anything like that?
depending on where you are. I want to say like San Francisco, maybe I've
Yep.
seen it there
Yep.
before.
Notorious for this. Yep.
Oh,
Okay. Okay, so you're familiar with these like fees, and they can range anywhere from like I mean maybe $2 to like $6. It's not usually, or maybe a little larger if there's like some extra like tax, or maybe there'll be multiple. Maybe there's like a
yeah.
health mandate will be $2, but then like San Francisco will have like an extra like 50% service fee on top of that, so there's multiple. When you see that on your bill, and I'm assuming you had no knowledge of that, right?
I don't really know how it works. I'm pretty like, okay, I'll.
You'll pay
Uh,
it, right? Because it's on the bill.
yeah.
Okay. So there is a law that takes effect on July 1st
Okay.
to basically that would eliminate all junk fees. Um, Junk fees like that, all hidden fees. So businesses, aka restaurants, starting July 1st, will no longer be able to use those type of hidden fees. So if they want to be charging customers those fees, they have to be upfront about it. It has to be advertised in the menu
Uh-huh.
or somewhere where the server has to let you know. They can't just add this because right now they're not doing that.
Well,
Right now,
usually
these
they'll
fees are
do
just
it
added at the end.
on like a menu. You might see like a warning that for parties larger than 10 people, there will be an automatic gratuity charge. So they warn you about that, but they don't. I've never seen a warning about what you're talking
Yeah,
about. Like,
they
oh,
can.
we
Yeah,
will charge.
they can warn you about gratuity if that's included. Yeah, they're doing that, and that's okay. But these fees that they're not giving any warning, that practice is going to go away, and the restaurant industry in the Bay Area, at least, I can't speak for, this isn't really happening in Monterey to the same extent. I'm not sure about LA, but in the Bay Area, people are pissed about this. They are
Hmm.
so upset that they're not going to be able to charge these fees anymore. And I understand that the restaurant industry is such a difficult business. I get that. But
Well, they can't charge them at all, or they have to warn. They have to tell you
well,
somewhere.
that's the thing. I think the fear is they don't want to have to raise prices more than they already have because then they're afraid that people won't want to eat there. People will be
Mm-hmm.
turned off by the high prices. So the restaurant industry has lobbied, and I feel comfortable saying this because it's the Golden Gate Restaurant Association. They've been talking with State Senator Scott Wiener and State Senator Bill Dodd of Napa, and Scott Wiener's of San Francisco. They've introduced a new bill that would essentially allow these restaurants to keep charging these fees, essentially overturning this law that takes effect July 1st. So a lot of people are now upset about this fact that these lawmakers are essentially going around this law to try and let these restaurants keep charging these hidden fees. So my question to you, the consumer, would you
Mm-hmm.
rather pay? Would you rather pay higher prices per meal and have that just advertised up in front, or are you okay with being charged this hidden tax at the end of your meal that you knew nothing about?
Uh, so I'm not super opinionated about it. Um, but I feel like just w- from my ignorant point of view right now, I feel like the way it should work is that it should just be priced into the cost of things. Um, and then I understand that like the cost of things might go up. So like someone who's a regular somewhere who's used to paying like $13 for this burger is now going to be paying 14 or 15, whatever. Um, they will get annoyed like, why did you increase the cost of the thing that I always order? But outside of that situation, I feel like people wouldn't notice too much if the cost of everything went up 2% on all items. And then the only reason I feel like, again, from my ignorant point of view, the reason that's ideal is it's just less to think about, less to understand from the consumer. The business has a sense of what their costs are and what their profit margin is, and they take care of the math for you of what they need to charge you in order to reach their profit margin. So, like, the consumer can be dumb and the business figures out what they need to charge instead of it being. But I guess if I were to play devil's advocate with myself, like it is more information for the consumer to know, like this is why the cost is what it is. We're charging this much for this tax and this much for this other tax that are, imposed on us by our local government. So I guess I'm giving kind of a non-answer by uh,
No, I think
taking
the for
both
the first
sides.
thing you said, I mean, I think what you said about just paying more up front and just being transparent. Um, and then you went on to play devil's advocate. But I think your first answer, at least that's where I stand. I am certainly in favor of just transparency, and just for me, having grown up in the restaurant industry and around it, I understand. I know how difficult it is, and I know the
Mm-hmm.
challenges that these businesses have been through, especially post pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But I am not certain of what the marriage to these hidden fees is and why they're so desperate to sort of keep those in their pocket. I think people are willing to support if they're willing to support your business. They're willing to they're because like you said, they're already going to pay, excuse me, sorry, they're already going to pay that hidden fee when it shows up on their bill, but they may not be happy about it because they were blindsided by it. If they know
Mm-hmm.
up front what they're paying and just what they see in the menu is what they're going to be charged, I think there'd be a greater sense of understanding from the community. And most of the comments that I've seen online have kind of reflected this too. They would rather just know what they're paying up front and not be hit with these fees after the fact. I don't know. I mean, and they say that they would be okay with paying the higher prices. I don't know if that's just like a bubble, and that's not really the reality of how people are, and that's why these businesses are so concerned. But I just think as they try to stay afloat, as the industry really tries to stay afloat, because it is really tough. The cost of everything is going up. The cost of goods, everything from eggs because the chicken need more space to bacon and pork is going up because of the new pig law for the pig farms.
Mm-hmm.
It's really tough in California for restaurants right now. It has been for a while, and it will continue to be. I don't understand why we are still talking about these hidden fees once this law takes into effect July 1st.
From like a more general perspective, I think the crux of my that first argument I gave is like it would be nice if things were just simpler and like with food it's not that complicated, but like dealing with tax systems and tax laws or lawyers or insurance, like as I become more of an adult now, I'm 31 years old, like I'm still pretty not knowledgeable about these things. There's like still learning on the job, I guess, about now I got this tax penalty, so I have to go read like pages of IRS documentation about why I was charged the penalty, or my wife was involved in a car accident and we need to like make a claim against the other person's insurance for the personal injury damages and stuff, and like it's just crazy to me. Like I mean, I consider myself like pretty stupid or like a slow learner,
Nah,
but
don't
like I've
sell yourself short, man. Come on.
but at the end of the day, I'm like college educated, and I've so I'm like there's people who are even more ignorant than me, and I don't know how they deal with this stuff. So I'm all in favor of like making things simpler and make taking things into the back end, making the like consumer, the citizen, making things user friendly for them. So that's why I was thinking like, just tell me what it costs, and then I'm not doing math. I'm not worrying about if I buy this item, then I'm going to incur. Yeah. Um, so
Yeah,
I guess that's where I stand, but I am sure there's someone more informed than me that could give an argument that would make me see why I'm wrong.
I think we agree. But I think that more information. I don't think will change your mind. I just think more information the people in favor of the tax might use to try and justify their point. But I
Yeah.
personally, I just don't see it. But that's been a hot topic in the news
I'll have to read
this
up on
week,
it.
so I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. A lot more news items I could talk about, but I don't really want to get into. But did you happen to hear what happened to the Oakland mayor?
No, is this something I should be embarrassed? Maybe I
No,
have though.
no.
What
I
is it?
mean, it's a little scandalous. Her home was raided by FBI agents
Oh, I
on
did see a
Thursday.
headline, but I don't know
Yeah,
anything what it's
her
about.
so her home and then properties that are tied to these wealthy donors, and they're owners of a local garbage company in Oakland. So there's a lot of speculation going on right now because there's the FBI, the IRS, and the U.S. Postal Service are all conducting this massive investigation. And somehow either the mayor or the mayor's family is involved. This
Wow.
company, Cal Waste, is involved. And this family, the Duong family, and they know, like, they have ties to a lot of, like, politicians, like Gavin Newsom, they have pictures with, Kamala Harris, the Oakland mayor, of course, and plenty of other Oakland, lawmakers, movers and shakers. So that all went down on Thursday. So as this producer and I were putting together the Willie Mays special, all this is happening about
Oh, jeez.
with the Oakland mayor. So we're like, oh, what is going on? And there's just a lot of other kind of big things that happened this week.
Is it
So
like an embezzling type situation or like
I
a
don't know.
improper business relationship like what is the scandal?
So the company, we don't know what this is about, and we and I don't know when we'll find out about the raid. I mean, we still don't know why they raided Diddy's home weeks
True.
ago. So who knows when we'll
We
find
can
out about
imagine, but we
this.
don't actually know.
Um, but the company Cal Waste has gotten in trouble before with the government. They've had to return money to family housing that they were found to have improperly taken through recycling fees, for
Mm.
example. So we'll see. I mean, there's some speculation about whether or not there was some bribery involved, whether or not there was some international trips that may have been paid for by this company. Without getting into any specifics, but
Oh.
that is certainly an evolving story. What made it really curious too is that we still haven't heard from the mayor since this happened on Thursday. We have not seen her.
Oh.
No one knows where she is. We have not heard from her. Her attorney did finally come out and speak yesterday after the fact. But let me back up. She hired an attorney, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel like, she could very well be innocent, but if you hire an attorney, I don't know, that does, you're gearing up for some kind of legal fight, I feel
Uh-huh.
like, whether that's to prove your innocence or to defend yourself, one way or the other. So I don't know, but we still don't know. She may be putting out a statement next week. But I thought it was fascinating that, and I like, I mean, as a person, she seems fine. I don't, but her PR ever since she took office, she won in 2022, and the PR has been like a mess
Oh.
from her office. It's been tough.
Sloppy.
So yeah, just a little sloppy.
Well,
So yeah,
maybe
that's
next
some fun local drama for you
yeah,
and for
maybe
our
next
audience.
episode we'll have an update on the Oakland Mayor
I don't know.
situation
I
or the
will.
Diddy situation
I will
maybe.
be sure to. Honestly, though, yeah, I know. Diddy. I don't know. Gross. But that has been. Let me think. I think that those are the highlights.
Current
Those are the
events with Chris.
current events with Chris. Yeah. Oh, we should make that a segment. Add in some
Yeah,
music, maybe.
I
Yeah.
like
No.
it.
But yes, I'm always happy to share current events. Easy for me to talk about because it's my job. Um, I also wanted to ask you, and this is a good segue. Any good movies that you've seen recently? Do you have any top five movies that you've seen so far? I feel like we wanted to talk about this last episode,
Yeah.
but we got too deep into the Kendrick and Drake beef. Um, but the summer movie season is in full swing. I feel like movies are kind of having a moment right now with Inside Out 2 and
Oh.
Bad Boys the week before. I have not seen the most recent Inside Out or Bad Boys, though I would like to. And I feel like you've seen a lot more movies than me. in general. So I'll let you start that conversation off.
Yeah, so for the listeners, like within the last year or so, I've gotten really into taking movie watching as a hobby more seriously. So I'm trying to see everything, not everything, but most of the things in theaters, and catching up on a lot of older movies I haven't, like I never saw, that I'm embarrassed about never having seen. So my wife like jokes that I'm like trying to become a movie snob, and even I'll say that, but it's not at all. Like I'm still very like uneducated, but just I like watching movies. I don't need any qualifications for that, and I'm trying to learn more about which directors do I like, and which actors are, just more informed than I used to be. So this year I think has been kind of a down year, and it's not too surprising because of the strikes that were
Mm-hmm.
going on. Obviously, like the strikes not going on anymore, but it was going on last year. So movies are there's that lag effect of like while the strike was happening, the next year or two, maybe there's going to be a lull of fewer movies, fewer high quality movies. I think it's not too controversial an opinion to say that people view this year as a down year,
Mm-hmm.
but I've still seen a lot of stuff I really like. I tasked myself with going through the movies I've seen this year and kind of like categorizing them. And so the most obvious thing for me is my top 5. And for me, number 1 was not hard at all to come up with. It's Dune Part 2.
Mm.
And it's interesting because when I watched the first Dune a few years ago, it went straight to streaming on HBO because it was during the pandemic.
Right.
Um, and I was like super underwhelmed. I thought it was boring. I was falling asleep. I was watching it on my TV, obviously. And then, in anticipation of Dune Part 2, my wife and I rewatched Dune Part 1 and we at home again, and we loved it. It was like, I don't know what the difference was, but maybe it was just one of those movies you need to rewatch in order to understand some of the characters or plot lines. But like, really liked it. That got my hype going for part 2, which like was awesome. And now I think we're in this like trilogy epic, a la like Lord of the Rings, uh
Oh wow.
or the original Star Wars, for example, where it's just like these like epic, um, large scale feeling movies that there's going to be 3 of, and they're gonna. I don't know if Dune Part 2 is going to be the one that makes a run at the Oscars, or if it'll be the third one. But yeah, I love Dune Part 2. Number 2 for me. So number 2 and 3, I think I kind of have in the same tier. Challengers and Hitman.
Hmm. Okay.
Hitman is just released on Netflix within the last week or two, and it's a rom com. Um, it's not an action movie; it's a rom com, which is not my favorite genre. It is my wife's favorite genre, and I kind of roll my eyes at rom coms. Um, but this one I thought had a really interesting premise. Um, I don't want to. I guess I don't want to give away too much. I don't have a good I'm not a good judge of what constitutes spoilers and what doesn't, so I'll just stay
Fair.
away. But like for me, Hitman was about as good as it gets for a rom com. Gave that one 4 stars. Challengers, I said I have that at number 2. I just thought it was really well made. I like tennis a lot, and this movie really nailed the tennis like culture. And then it had this like um, as you penned it, horny sexual backdrop, which was interesting. But then also, I just thought like a really interesting commentary on like masculinity and like these two polar opposite like personalities, and I don't know what the label is, but you got like the alpha and you got like I guess the beta cuck.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's I don't know what else to call it, but you got the you got like a guy who's an alpha, and then the various dynamics at play between those guys being friends, those guys being involved in a love triangle, those guys in a professional setting over a long period, and then I really liked the way the movie like hopped around in time, which is sometimes awful, sometimes well done. I thought it was well done in this case, and then the music was really cool and really well used, and yeah, I like Challengers. I know you didn't feel as strongly about it.
I think it's grown on me since, and like the more I've reflected on it, and I think to your point about Dune, the first Dune, I think sometimes you have to see a movie more than once for it to really click. So if I saw Challengers again, I might think more highly of it. I did like it. I think I saw it with my girlfriend, and she did not care for the Zendaya character. I think because I think she left away. It was, I will say, it was hard for me to see Zendaya and like believe that she is this, this mother who's been through all this. I think it was kind of hard to separate the actress from the character in
Yeah.
that situation. I agree that I thought it was very well made. I thought the story was great. It was very horny, which is a plus.
I
Yeah,
didn't
no,
even
it was
realize.
good. It was a good character drama, and I think tennis was kind of, yeah, like you said, the backdrop for this story that they wanted to tell, this love triangle. But yeah, I think the Zendaya character was I don't know if it was the weakest. I don't know if I would say it was the weakest part of it, but I
You
felt
just didn't
that
believe in it.
not as much. Yeah, I think not as much as the film wanted me to. But I still liked the movie. I still thought it was very entertaining. And very well told. And at the end of the day, that's we go to the movies to be entertained.
Yeah,
So
I didn't even realize that my top two movies have Zendaya as a prominent role. But
oh
yeah,
yeah, huh?
it's interesting to think about because of the down year, like what is going to play at the Oscars, what's going to do well. And I think like it's in a normal year, it's hard for me to see challengers like being in the mix, but I just don't know what else will be in the mix. And then same thing with Dune Part Two. It's like to me, it's a clear front runner for not the Oscars, but for me, for my personal favorite movie of the year. So I also wouldn't be surprised for either of those to be in the mix in the Oscars for
Yeah.
best picture or best actress categories.
I mean, Dune will probably at least be nominated. It might be a lot for a lot of the technical awards, right? Like the
Oh
visual
yeah.
effects and sound editing and things like that. I think the first Dune did win an Oscar for visual effects or some award, cinematography or sound design or something like that. The big
Yeah.
movies even the Marvel movies like never got Oscar love, but they would always get visual effects nominations. So
Right.
that at least I would feel. Excuse me, sorry. That I would at least feel confident in. Challengers, I mean, maybe there. I feel like there's always these movies that come out like for award season and like the last 2 months of the year that I've never heard of, and then all of a sudden I'm seeing all these commercials for them.
Mm,
So it's like, can challengers stay relevant long enough to be like
right.
mentioned amongst all those late season movies? I think that would be the question. And then also to what you said earlier, I mean, with the strike, how many of those movies will we be getting this year? I feel like the only movie that I see really and releasing advertised now that's not in theaters yet, but that's coming is Deadpool and
Yeah.
Wolverine. Like that,
Yeah, we
the
still got
marketing for
half
that
a
movie is
year, so.
crazy. I
Mm.
think we do, yeah. But okay, so your top three is Dune, Challengers, and Hitman.
Yeah, number
Number.
4, Furiosa, which again I saw in Amsterdam, and to me, honestly, was like kind of underwhelming. It started off really strong, but I felt like it lost steam. And then I think part of the issue I had was that um, Mad Max Fury Road is a 5-star movie for me, and like it just set the expectations so high, and I kind of expected to get another Mad Max Fury Road, and it just wasn't that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think living up to expectations led to a little, and um, so like overall, I think a little disappointed. I think I gave it like either 3.5. I think I gave it 3.5. But like the experience I had seeing it in that theater in another country and first THC in months, like the context in which I saw it definitely helped me enjoy it more. And maybe it'll be like another movie where I watch it a second time and I enjoy it more. I
Hmm.
thought the Mentis character was like funny, but also just kind of like not uh just didn't like it kind of wore on me, I guess, as the movie went on. And then I thought the movie really lagged in the latter half and like the war, the like going between the three different towns and the you saw it, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
What did you think of it?
Yeah, I thought it was underwhelming too. I think I felt I mean, the thing about Mad Max, and that was another movie that grew on me. It was just like, it was essentially, it was a giant chase, but you could feel like the weight of it. You
Mm-hmm.
could feel the weight of everything. Just like they're in this like hot, like godforsaken desert, and they're like everyone's kind of like at their wits' end and like going a little crazy. But it was just really captivating, and the action was amazing.
Yeah,
Thought the action for Yosa
really
was
unique.
good, but it didn't. I don't know if it. I don't know if it was because they were using more CGI and like more visual effects for
Mm-hmm.
Furiosa. It was missing some of that weight. I feel like, and just yeah, yeah when it was when they're going like from town to town, that kind of dragged a little too. I thought the acting was fine. Chris Hemsworth is entertaining, but I was getting maybe a little Thor vibes at
Yeah, I've
points.
heard that
That
complaint.
might be another, instance of just trying to separate the actor from the character. Anya Taylor Joy was fine, but I thought Charlize Theron was better as
Yeah.
Furiosa. So, and those are, those, I mean, but also, I mean, no disrespect to Taylor Joy. Those are some big
Yeah,
shoes
no,
to
she's
fill.
great. I think she
Yeah,
just wasn't used well. Like it wasn't a good display of her um, talents in that
exactly.
movie.
Yeah. So yeah, it was fine, but yeah, I was a little underwhelmed by it too.
And my number five is one you've also seen, Planet of the Apes. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, it was hard to pick between. It was hard to pick between Challengers and Hitman for two and three, and hard to pick between Furious and Planet of the Apes for four and five. I gave the edge to Furiosa because I think it's probably just like a better movie in the like movie snob
Mm-hmm.
lens. Whereas Planet of the Apes was, I don't know that it was the strong point of the quadrilogy, if you will, um, quadrilateral.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I had like binged all of those movies, and I had only seen the first one like back in 2012 or 11,
Mm-hmm.
um, and like so I didn't really remember it. And so I like did my Planet of the Apes, the recent ones at least, like deep dive. And so I just had a lot of momentum and I was really into the universe. So even though that fourth one was like not amazing, it like felt really good to me in the theater, and like I was really interested in what happened, and it was like different. I mean, the lack of Caesars, obviously, you feel that, and you wish Caesar was a really good character, and not having this storyline was a bummer. But like, you still have like continuity of this universe, and yeah, I remember when you saw it, you said you had to like mentally recover, and you were like up for
Yeah.
hours afterward just thinking about what happened. So you were like shook. So
Yeah,
let's hear about
I
that.
was shook. I think I would probably rank that as my second. I think I only have a top three because I have not seen as that many movies this year. I
What's your
and I
first?
would my first would be Civil War.
Oh,
I really liked Civil War, and I think maybe that's just because of my news background.
uh huh.
And you saw it,
Makes
right?
sense. Yeah, that's in my honorable
Yeah.
mentions, and it feels honestly like wrong to have Planet of the Apes ahead of Civil War.
I mean,
Um,
I would not put Challengers above Civil War personally.
yeah.
Of the ones that I think those are the only ones that you mentioned that I've seen that I haven't mentioned. Civil War, I love Civil War, and that was another one that really like messed with me a little because it took a
Mm-hmm.
really unflinching look at that. It was war through the eyes of journalists, and
Mm-hmm.
I by definition am a journalist. And just the idea of like how far we'll go for the story and for the perfect shot because I think going into the movie, didn't really know what it was going to be about, but I had saw like
Yeah.
some of the early feedback was that it wasn't really about the war itself. I think people wanted to know how this came to be, because it
Yeah.
was like the forces. It was like California and Texas versus DC, and then you have the Florida Alliance. I think people, and obviously that's like a really hot topic right now given the
Mm-hmm.
climate and everything. So people wanted to know that story. They wanted to know like how California and Texas got together and like just sort of that side of it. It didn't
Yeah.
explain that. I liked the way that it explained the world just kind of through casual exposition with the characters just having conversations about life that revealed little nuggets. It's one of those movies where like if you go to the bathroom, like you're gonna miss some key detail just because they just are sort of
Yeah.
dropped randomly throughout the movie and these conversations. I thought it looked great. I mean, just some of the imagery, like from the helicopter outside the J.C. Penney to like that the
Mm-hmm.
gas station that they just roll up on, and it's like, oh, I have $300, and he's like, oh, I'll get you a sandwich. And he's like, no, these are Canadian. And he's like, oh my god, just like little things like that just like tell you about this world without really telling you. It's more showing than
Yeah.
telling, I guess. So I really liked that
The
the way
sound was
that they did it.
incredible.
The sound
It was like
design, the
scary.
final
Like,
battle, like the gunshots in the final battle,
yeah.
that was insane. That was insane. Speaking of, Oscars, if that movie doesn't get nominated for like sound design or sound mixing,
Yeah.
that would be upsetting. But yeah, I really liked the story it told. I feel like it had a lot to say about journalism, almost more so than the war itself and like politics. Just about
Mm-hmm.
how they covered it and like how far they were willing to go and how it sort of changes you as a person and maybe even like does things that sort of what it does to you and how you cope with that. And the main character Kirsten Dunst, at the beginning she's just this like rock hard emotionless person who is just
Mm-hmm.
all about getting the perfect shot, and then this journey taking this girl under her wing, it just sort of changes her, and that culminates with, and spoilers I guess, but we'll see it with
Spoiler.
her mentor dying towards the end, while trying to save them from those nationalists.
And
And that just kind of
she,
breaks her.
yeah, and like she doing kind of sacrificing for her mentee, and
Yeah, which
kind
was a
of,
sign that she had changed because they have that conversation earlier where the young journalist is like, if you like if I were dying, like, would you take a picture of me? And then she said, like, yeah, like, what do you think?
it's a
Like,
very poignant
absolutely.
moment.
And then the reverse ends up happening, and it was just, yeah, I really liked that movie. And it made me too think like, oh, like, because as journalists we're all about like being first and like
Yeah.
breaking news and just being like the first on the scene and being the one to deliver it to our viewers. And then at some point you have to ask, like, but at what cost? Like, what are we losing in
Yeah.
the process? So I really liked that movie. That
Yeah,
was
and
definitely favorite
it's
so
not
far.
surprising to hear that you related to the industry side of things, and then I think like you talked about how a lot of people who were disappointed like expected more overlap with our specific American political climate, and
Mm-hmm.
it intentionally didn't do that. I mean, it's made by a British filmmaker who obviously isn't like necessarily super in the know of American politics, or even maybe the most qualified person to make a movie that's a commentary on it. But in avoiding like specific explanations of how California and Texas are together, why or what led to this, like
Mm-hmm.
he's making a general commentary on how um, bipolar our current political discourse is, and how I guess polarized maybe is a better word. So that's obviously easy to relate to or understand, and see that that's what we're dealing with right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you had Civil War as your number one, and then you were Planet of the Apes is your number two, and it shook you.
Yeah, man. I think the ending is really like what got to me, because at the end when you have like the ape side and the human side, and I just think that's sort of like when both characters they're just kind of like looking up to the stars and like thinking about what comes next, and like we've gotten to this place. I mean, the movie was such an adventure. I feel
Uh
like
huh.
it felt long, and it really was an adventure for these characters. I don't know I don't I didn't 100% love the story that they told, only just because I feel like in some ways it went backwards, despite
Mm-hmm.
being many, however many hundreds of years in the future, because like in the original trilogy, the when the Caesar and the apes they like take over San Francisco, like they have guns, like they have access to technology, and that continued in
Uh-huh.
war. Now here we go, many hundred years later, and this tribe is using like sticks and stones, and they're having eagles like do their hunting for them. I think it would have been cool to see a world where the apes have evolved technology, when technology has evolved with the apes and they're kind of able to figure it out. I feel like that would have been that was one direction they could have taken it. And I was just reminded because towards the end, when they finally do, like when one of the characters does get access to guns and like shoots an ape, and it's like, oh, but like we've already seen this in this franchise. Like this isn't new. So, but like it's new for these characters, but like we spent a lot of time just to get here. We spent a lot of time just to get to this point where the characters are using guns, where like we had already kind of
Right.
seen that. So, excuse me. Um, but I mean, I was happy with it, and then I thought the ending was really cool. I thought the antagonist Proximus Caesar was a really cool villain. I liked how he kind of warped Caesar's teachings,
Yeah.
and that he was, he just came off as a very like commanding presence, but he also wasn't like a complete dick. Like he was still like pro ape, and at the end of the movie, you think, maybe he wasn't completely wrong, even if he was going about it in a bad way, but he had good points. Um,
Yeah, well, he
I
was
thought
mostly just wanted to, from what I remember, it was just kind of in it for the personal power. Like, I don't know. I think he was using these as like devices to control the people who would give him power, but I don't know if he actually like um, cared about the apes that he was.
he seemed to be. I mean, he was more maybe anti-human than pro-ape towards the end.
Yeah.
I think of certain scenes where like they're having the dinner with him, and then that one monkey comes in, who's like a friend of the main characters, and then the friend like drops food on the table or something, and like you're expecting Caesar to like lash out and like like make a fool out of him or something, but he doesn't. He just says it's fine, just go, you go. And I thought that kind of like played on expectations that this guy was going to be like a brutal dictator. So I
Mm.
think maybe a couple more scenes like that would have helped maybe sell what I was kind of like thinking, oh, like there's more to this character. Maybe he's not all bad. And then at the end, when they're having the debate over, the human character and the main ape character talking at the very end of the movie, and it's like, like maybe I felt like the main ape character was wondering whether or not he did the right thing by partnering with the human, even if it was to save his tribe. The Proxima Caesar was certainly not. I mean, he was definitely a bad guy, but it just made me wonder, like, I don't know. It felt like it was like complex storytelling. It wasn't black and white, and I enjoyed that. And I just really I liked the ending. Felt made me optimistic for movies going forward. And I feel like the movie has made a decent enough profit that I feel like they will go forward with this trilogy. I mean, it looked beautiful too. Um,
Hmm.
so I was happy with how it turned out overall. I liked the conflict that it set up between apes and humans. Felt like a good way to carry the story forward, even if I don't know if I would have done it the similar way. But I'm also like not a screenwriter, so like, what do I know?
And then what was your number three?
My number three. So I actually kept going. I kept going back and forth on my third one, and I think even though I was underwhelmed by it, I still really liked Furiosa. So
Yeah.
I think I might put that as my third.
Okay. Makes sense. And we talked about that one a little bit already. So in honorable mentions, I had Civil War, which we also talked about. I had a film called Cabrini, which is actually my wife's number two favorite movie of the
Hmm,
year after Dune.
I haven't heard of it.
Um, I don't think it's been advertised to marketed very heavily, but it gets really good like Rotten Tom scores. I call Rotten Tomatoes
Rotten
Rotten Tom.
Tom. That's cute.
Um, but it's about like an Italian nun who comes to New York and like runs an orphanage basically. And so as an Italian and as a co-host of a podcast that is a little bit Italian. I think that would be a good one to watch. Another honorable mention I had is Abigail, which was the one about the like vampire ballet dancer, which my wife and
Oh
I were
yes.
both like cringing about when we were seeing the trailers. Like we thought it looked stupid, but we saw it at a drive-in in San Luis Obispo, which was both of our first drive-in experience, and it was actually like pretty good. I mean, I think it's another one of those situations where the context in which we saw it like helped us enjoy it more. But then it also just was like a kind of like a throwback, um, people stuck in a house, like horror thriller type movie.
Hmm.
So yeah, shout out Abigail. And then two more honorable mentions, which are technically movies from last year, but they were from the very end of last year. And they were eligible for Oscars last year and get didn't really win too much. Society of the Snow, and about the plane crash of the rugby team. And I don't know if you saw that one, but it's on
No.
Netflix. And then Iron Claw, which is about
Oh, the wrestling family, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I've been
the
seeing that
Von
advertised a lot on
Erichs.
Max.
Yeah, it's almost, it's very like tragic, and it maybe borders on um like it's really well made though, and it's like sad, and like great acting performances, like it's based on real, I like love movies that are based on things that actually happened, and getting to learn about things I didn't know about. Favorite movie of last year was Killers of the Flower Moon, and I
Mm.
didn't know anything about that whole situation. So yeah, if you haven't seen Society of the Snow and Iron Claw, definitely recommend them. I had two oofs, which we don't need to talk about too much, but Damsel, which was I think a Netflix only movie with what's her name, Millie Bobby Brown. Um,
Oh, right, like damsel in distress, except she's like not in distress. She's like
yeah,
saving herself, right?
it
She
was
doesn't need
like a
no prince.
dragon like marriage. It was bad. I didn't like that one. And then The Idea of You, which was like Anne Hathaway, who's like pretty old now, like probably somewhere in her maybe even late 40s, mid 40s, could be
Hmm.
late 30s, I don't know. She's old, and she's playing like a mom who basically goes to Coachella, and like it's a rom-com, and she like falls in love with the lead singer of like one of these like One Direction type band like that, and he's like some young kid, and it's this like forbidden romance or whatever. And so that one was kind of weak in my opinion. So I guess I'm not recommending those unless you're maybe looking to cringe and laugh at a movie.
Okay.
And then I had two movies that I'm super anticipating. You already mentioned Inside Out 2, which should be on this list. I'm really looking forward to that one. I don't really Bad Boys, I'm not really like in the know on those, or
Hmm.
like I've heard decent things, but I'm not like dying to see that one. Quiet Place, though, I recently watched all of those movies, and
Oh,
the
I haven't
new
seen
one
those.
I think just came out. You haven't seen them?
Nah.
Oh, you got to see them. They're really good. The first two are kind of like small scale, like in a small town, but this newest one is in like New York City. So I think that's going to do a lot for like having a new take on the premise that they set out to talk about, and which is a really interesting like this overlap of like zombies or aliens or whatever. They're not zombies, they're aliens, but the overlap of aliens, and then also like using sound as a um character basically in these movies. And yeah. And then the last anticipated one I have is called Kinds of Kindness. It's a
Oh,
Yorgos Lanthimos
yes.
movie, who did Poor Things last year, and Emma Stone won Best Actress for that, and she's also going to be in Kinds of Kindness. And then Fat Damon, aka Jesse Plemons, who had a a short cameo in Civil War. He's going to be a character in this, and I don't really know anything about the movie. But Yorgos Lanthimos, I've like gotten into his movies over the last year or so, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not always like easy to watch, but they're always fun and they're always like thought provoking and interesting. And I think aside from Colors of the Flower and Moon, I think Poor Things was my second favorite movie of last year. So the combo of Yorgos and Emma Stone is like definitely anticipating something good there, and maybe
Yeah.
that'll be one that does well at the Oscars.
Yeah, that would be crazy if Emma Stone repeated at the Oscars. We'll see. The movie looks kind of like a trip. Even just like the posters alone for that movie are like they're like psychedelic, and it's just like something is clearly amiss here, which
Yeah.
is kind of in line with that director's work. I want to make one correction. I goofed on my top three. Still think Civil War and Planet of the Apes. My number
Uh-huh.
three movie would not be Furiosa. I think Furiosa would be an honorable mention. But
Okay.
for me, actually, number three would be the Godzilla and King Kong movie.
Oh, really?
Godzilla Kong: The New Empire. That movie was sick. I like that movie a lot. I can't believe that I like spaced on it earlier. But then, as you're mentioning, I forget what movie you mentioned, but that like just like reminded. Oh, I think we said damsel, you said dragon. That reminded me. I was like, oh
Oh.
fuck, Kong. And there are no dragons in that movie. Godzilla, I think he's technically a lizard. That movie was really good. I mean, I'm a sucker for movies like that. Like, I mean, I love a lot of the Godzilla movies. But this one I really enjoyed. Godzilla versus Kong came out during the pandemic 3 years ago. I thought that one was good too, and even though the feedback was like a little more mixed then because like the monster parts were great, but the human parts were a little lackluster in the last one. This one I thought it was a more balanced, like the monster and human parts. Like the human parts were better, were more tolerable, but there were also parts of this movie where they just like let the camera follow King Kong, and there was like no dialogue, maybe for like a good like maybe 45-minute stretch, but it's just like him in this world and like interacting with other people like him and discovering people like him. So I
Hmm.
just thought overall that was a very entertaining movie.
Oh, I
I
haven't
took
heard
it
the
a lot.
greatest things about that one, but I think last year there was a Godzilla movie that everyone loved.
There
Um,
was, yeah, Shin Godzilla, which was really good. I like that movie too. It's called Shin Godzilla, right? I think I get Shin Godzilla and Godzilla minus, or I mean, it was Godzilla minus one because I
I
watched
think
those back to
yeah.
back. Minus one. That one was good too. It's cool that there's like two different sort of Godzilla canons right now. Like you
Oh,
have the Godzilla minus one, which is like more serious and deals with like the actual like implications of Godzilla, and those are
okay.
made by the Japanese studio. And then you have the ones that are made here by I believe it's Legendary Pictures, where just like what if Godzilla could just like blow a bunch of shit up and like let's just throw King Kong in there for fun and just like let's just see what happens. So you've got like
Mm.
the action like duke it out piece and then the more thoughtful piece as well. That is not has kind of its own action too, but it's a little more subdued. So Godzilla fans are eating pretty good right now.
Yeah, I want to get into them. I just don't really know like where to start, and I don't even know about the split of the canon and like the which ones are which. I'm sure I could find it online, but yeah, I want to like check them out, see what they're about, but I don't know like how to go about it or where to begin and like how what order and all that. So if you have any suggestions, I'm all ears.
For the American version, I would say start with Godzilla the 24 that came out in 2014.
Okay.
And then so that movie and then its first sequel, Godzilla King of Monsters, are very different in tone. I think because Godzilla King of Monsters didn't do very well, and I think that was my least favorite of all the movies that they've made. I just thought the tone was kind of all over the place, and we talk
Mm.
about like the balance of monsters and humans. I think movies like Godzilla minus one like do that very well by making it really about like the human story is really well told. I thought the human story in Godzilla King of Monsters was god awful. It was so bad. And like the monster parts were good, but they were just few and far between for all the human like drama that we kind of had to stomach. There's like family drama, but like the mother is like also an eco terrorist and is like trying to destroy like the human population, but also like has trouble connecting to her daughter. And I'm just like, Like what? Like this is awful. What are we doing?
Ugh.
Um,
I have a
but
feeling I'm gonna
yeah,
like the Japanese ones more,
you
but I
might.
guess I'll have to give them both a shot.
But so that was, I believe, 2019 that one came out. They also put
Hmm.
out a King Kong movie in 2017, and that one's pretty good. That one feels like a throwback because it takes place in the 70s. It feels kind of like a 70s or like 80s action movie.
Okay.
That one I thought was good. It was when Godzilla versus Kong came out in 2021 that the tone kind of changed and got a little sillier, maybe a little less realistic, but just kind of putting a bigger focus on just like I think fun and just like
Hmm.
understanding, like giving people kind of what they want with the monsters. And then I think they kind of continued that vibe with this most recent Godzilla and Kong movie. I think Godzilla versus. I don't know if this movie, the most recent one, had as strong an ending. Like I don't think the highs weren't as high for this most recent movie. It just felt kind of like a more consistent, solid watch. Whereas
Hmm.
Godzilla versus Kong was like this, just like this is awesome, this sucks, this is awesome, this
Uh,
is not. But you know, I that was not maybe the best endorsement I could have gave. That wasn't a ringing endorsement, but
well,
I
I'm
do.
gonna
But
check
they're
them
very
out.
good. Yeah, check them out.
I'll let you know what I think. And yeah, I'll see what the internet recommends in terms of how to watch them. And but yeah, I think we had a good talk on movie stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
good chat.
it was fun catching up. Um, again, we went longer than we were expecting to, but not quite as long as our episode 0. So I think we'll
Yeah,
get
we
the
got
hang of
under
it.
2 hours, which is a good place to start. You know, maybe
Yeah,
next one we'll try and do like under 90 minutes or something, and we'll
I
see.
think that's a
See,
good goal.
can see if we can like strike a balance. But yeah, man, it's been great talking to you as always.
Yeah, likewise, and excited to meet up again, hopefully within 2 weeks, and we'll figure out what to talk about then.
Definitely sounds good. This has been episode 1 of Una Faccia Una Razza. Thank you all for listening. Until next time,
See ya.
peace.